Let's go ahead and get started and introduce our first speaker of our normal sesh time. So, Kirsty Burgoyne. So this is her talk. She's going to fully introduce herself, but let's give you a little precursor to her talk. We all dream of the utopia that is a truly inclusive community or workplace, somewhere where everyone feels valued and welcome no matter their background. The land where dreams you dared to dream really do come true. The WordPress community is hugely diverse and represents people from all sorts of backgrounds and with a wide variety of skill sets. But it is also as inclusive as it could be, especially but is it? That was very important. But is it as inclusive as it could be, especially for the LGBTQ plus community? Let's discuss some of the challenges faced and how, as individuals, we can make small changes that could help to remove some of the barriers that prevent people from being open and true to themselves. Everybody, big welcome for Kirsty.
Thank you. You can see my fan club in the front row. Cool. Good morning. I'm really pleased that some of you managed to get up this morning. How many of you were at the Pride party last night? Cool. Okay. So I first did this talk 2 years ago now at a WordCamp in the UK in Whitley Bay. And last time I gave this talk, I honestly wasn't sure it was something I should actually speak to. I spent a lot of time worrying about whether my story mattered, whether it was enough, did I know enough about the history and the politics of this to be stood here. But the thing I came to realize was that staying silent doesn't really help either. So, and with everything going on in the world right now, it's even more important to speak up. So, just to share your own perspective, so that's what I'm doing today. For anybody that doesn't know, LGBTQIA+ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, asexual, and the plus sign covers generally anyone who doesn't fit into the traditional norms of gender and sexuality. For today, I'm going to refer to it as the queer community, because last time I did this talk, I said LGBTQIA+ every time. It was really difficult, so this is a bit shorter. So, a small bit about me. I'm an engineering manager at HumanMade. I've been there for 7 years now, and I'm based in the UK. But the information that's relevant to this talk is I am openly gay. So I identify as lesbian, which, that's the second time now I've ever stood on stage and said that, and it's not any less weird. Right, so I consider myself quite lucky because for as long as I've been out, I've had the luxury of living pretty openly. But now, politically, things are shifting in a worrying way, and I'm watching laws and public conversations about queer rights grow really hostile again now. And this shift in the landscape of queer rights has had me even more aware of how fragile progress can be and how easily we could lose a lot of the rights that people have fought for us. So, it said in my speaker notes that I should drink water, so I remembered to drink water. So why did I come here to speak to all of you about this at the WordPress community? Well, the WordPress community, oh God, it just zoomed in on my Zoom. Speaker notes, that was unnerving. The WordPress community is global, so it's naturally diverse. But diversity means having a mix of different people across race, gender, culture, sexual orientation, and that. And we see that in our community through the events we organize throughout the world, all the way through the year, and all the people that contribute to the project in some way. But diversity really isn't the whole story. So is it as inclusive as it could be as well? Well, not necessarily. So to talk about diversity, as we often combine inclusivity in with that as well automatically, but they're not the same thing. Like, diversity is who is in the room. Inclusivity is whether they feel like they belong in the room. And that's a really important difference to understand. So achieving diversity doesn't automatically mean you've created a space that's truly welcoming. In fact, diversity without inclusivity can feel hollow and often be harmful. So while I genuinely believe we do have diversity in our WordPress community, we can't necessarily claim that it's also as inclusive as it could be as well. And I think that's really important to think about. So, going back to how this talk came about, I started thinking about this after WordCamp Europe in 2023 in Athens. And when I came home, I was feeling very frustrated by the lack of queer representation in the schedule. 2023 was an important year because it was the first year we had 3 flagship events. So we had WordCamp Asia, WordCamp Europe, and WordCamp US. And when you looked at the schedule for all of those, there was no queer representation in any of them. And 2024 wasn't a lot better either. WordCamp US was a little bit better. We had Fireside Chat, which I hosted. But it was in the main sponsor hall. It was so loud, nobody could hear anybody talk. It wasn't advertised on the schedule very well. And in the end, whilst it was a really great idea, it was a bit of a flop. So that was a shame. And we do, of course, have pride parties, like last night. That was epic. I meant to say at the beginning, I apologize if my voice goes, because I was at the pride party. It was fun. But these are side events, and to be fair, they've been shrouded in some of their own politics as well at times. So I kind of figured, well, someone somewhere must be talking about these topics. Perhaps there are other WordCamps I've not been to. So I did a search on WordPress TV for when I first did this talk. And I searched for the term LGBT, and only 6 results came up, and 2 of them were the same talk that had been done elsewhere in 2 WordCamps. I did search for the term lesbian, and only 2 came up, and for the searching for the term gay, only 1 came up that was remotely relevant. So I did the same search again for this talk, thinking that things must have moved on by now. And there was only 1 more search result for any of those, and it was my talk from 2 years ago. So, yay me, but it means that people are still not talking openly about this anywhere. And whilst I appreciate we talk about WordPress as a tool, WordCamps and the community that surround it are so much more than that, so we should be talking about these things openly. So, what are the challenges faced by the queer community when we're considering inclusivity? One thing I think that's really unique about this community is that it's not always obvious that somebody identifies as queer. And on top of that, not everybody that does chooses to be open about it. And there are many, many reasons why that would be the case, and it's deeply personal to every individual. But it does often stem from one thing, and that is fear. So this list, when I first did this talk, I tried to populate this list myself and think of all the things. It was taking ages, so I asked ChatGPT. This is what I got back. So I know, looking back, that I took longer to come out and be open than I really needed to. So these on here that are in yellow and underlined were my personal fears and my reasons. So fear of rejection, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. Bullying and discrimination. Like, I grew up in a pretty small town. I saw a lot of that. Like, there wasn't a lot of diversity. You know, anybody that was slightly different had a pretty hard time. So that was very definitely a concern for me. Fear of being stereotyped. I said at the beginning of this talk that I identify as a lesbian. For the longest time, I really hated that word because of the stereotypes associated with it. I don't anymore, but I did for a long time. Impact on relationships. So, you know, it was really very worrying to me that my friends and family would look at me differently or behave differently around me. And of course, that would impact on my relationship with them. And concern about being accepted, which I think everybody feels to a point. So knowing we're often able to hide in plain sight, let me ask you a question. This is a very generic photo of what is supposed to be a diverse group of people. Can anybody point out the gay person in this picture? Maybe bisexual? Anybody from the queer community in there, do you think? I can't tell. So it's not obvious we are there. Like, we can't always wear rainbow t-shirts and glitter to identify ourselves. Although I did find glitter in my shoe this morning after last night's party. That was bizarre. Which means it becomes even harder to tell if we're not there, if we're there or not. Because we can hide in plain sight. And for the most part, we do get to choose whether we want to do that or not, and that's even more important in today's climate. But it can make it much harder for us to come out, and this is because people are unaware that we are there. You know, their biases will show more often. Maybe they'll say something in front of you that I'd hope that no one would ever knowingly say in front of a member of the queer community. Microaggressions that people are not even aware of get used in front of us all of the time. So if you were to hear like an overtly racist comment, that's very likely deliberate, and you would challenge that. But homophobic slurs will go unnoticed, or they go unchallenged, simply because people don't even realize how harmful they are. So these are some specific comments, like, "That's so gay," or complimenting someone of the same gender and saying afterwards, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not gay." You know, it reinforces that being gay is bad, it's a negative thing. Do you have a boyfriend or husband? Reinforces that a heterosexual relationship is the only one, everything else is abnormal. And there are loads more. Like, I mean, I've been very guilty of it. I used to describe my now ex-wife's music taste as really very gay. And I justified that as, well, it's a genre, right? You know, there are songs that get played in every gay club around the world, so that's all that it's meant by that. But people interpreted it that I thought her taste in music was awful. Between you and me, I did think her taste in music was awful, but no, that's not why we're getting divorced. But it's these small slights, they're often completely unintentional, that do a lot of damage. Because even when no harm is meant, they still reinforce the idea that being gay is something bad or strange, that you should hide. You will not be accepted if you choose to live as your authentic self. And this is what it comes back to. It really is easier just to not talk openly and hide in plain sight. So when I've spoke to people in the WordPress and general tech community, this is often what I hear. And I've been guilty of it too. It's really much easier just to not mention your personal life and carry on. For me, I was very careful not to refer to my partner by her name. I'd always avoid phrases such as girlfriend, or use she, her pronouns because they weren't gender neutral, so that would give things away. I rarely do this now in literally any situation, but I am still a bit cautious on client projects, that include stakeholders, external teams, that could be located anywhere in the world. I don't know their cultural beliefs or personal beliefs, so it's really so much easier just to not volunteer what I did on the weekend when we're on calls. And thinking about those external teams and where they could be based, as of 2024, 64 countries around the world still criminalize consensual same-sex sexual activity. And in several of these countries, the penalty is so severe it could be imprisonment or death, which is pretty scary. Now, most of these are Africa, Middle East, Asia, or the Caribbean. But considering there's 195 countries in the world, according to Google, don't know if that's actually accurate, but I'm going with it. That means nearly a third of these countries legislate against us. And in 2024, we saw things like the rollback of trans healthcare protections in parts of the US. There's increasing anti-LGBTQ+ sentiment in countries like Hungary and Russia, which reminds us that no country is immune to regression. Not even the UK, who recently passed a ruling on the definition of gender and sex that has hugely impacted trans rights in a negative way. So it's entirely possible that I could work with a contractor that upholds some of these beliefs. I could meet someone here that does as well, a WordCamp for the weekend. We've all travelled, well, lots of us have travelled a long way to be here. But the reality is the people on my project teams, they probably don't even care, or they decided I was gay ages ago because I've got short hair, and that's another stereotype of being a lesbian. This time true, obviously. But because it's not always possible to know the cultural beliefs of the person you're interacting with, I've always been more cautious of engaging in trivial conversations than most other people wouldn't even have to think twice about. And I know I'm definitely not alone. So, what can the WordPress community do? We can't fix the whole world. It would be awesome if we could. But we can make this space, our space, safer and more inclusive for everyone who is part of it. It might feel like political shifts and culture wars are happening somewhere else, but they seep into everything, our workplaces, our Slack channels, even our everyday conversations. So at this point, I was going to talk to you about how to be like a really good ally, but then actually on social media the other day, I saw this really amazing video from Oslo Pride that I think describes it so beautifully that I'm just going to show that to you instead. Hopefully it will work. I think you'll agree that summed it up brilliantly. Yeah, I couldn't put that any better. So, what we want is for you to be visible, vocal allies. Wear your pride flag, talk openly, make it clear that you're someone who wants everyone to feel safe being their true selves. Because we don't know how many people are still battling that fear, still choosing silence. And just because there's a few of us open, that doesn't mean all of the work is done. And of course, this isn't just a WordPress problem, but we are a huge global community when you think about it. Imagine the ripple effect if each of us just made a few small changes that would reach teams, companies, events, communities, and eventually the wider world. Thank you very much, and happy Pride.
Yeah, there we go. That kind of took away the moment I was going to say. I was fighting back tears, and I was going to be mad because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to start crying. But I cry a lot, so if anyone else can relate. But we do have time for some Q&A, and we do have mics. Yeah, they're there. That one's just kind of off. But if anyone has any questions, you could come right up right now. But I know Kirsty will also be at the cafe afterward if anyone would rather have questions one-on-one.
Yeah, I did also forget to say that if you want pride flag stickers, then Sam in the front row has plenty. So.
Oh, that's right. You guys were waving them around like you were dancers earlier. I saw that. Yeah. Any questions? That's okay. But yeah, so we have a break then, and we'll be back here at 10:30 as well. I just got to note that there's a special session at the cafe at 10:30 as well, and it's another session that I was told to tell you guys, and I don't have it out. So anyway, With that, remember that if you are going to go to the party tonight, which you are, remember we said that earlier, to bring your badge. And otherwise, Kirsty is available if you guys need. Everyone give it up again.